Rogers TV, Gray County.
Welcome to Gray County Life at Home. We with Rogers TV online right now and on TV, I guess, but we're doing our shows from home. And I'm Rhonda Brown, one of your co-hosts, and with me is
Mary Jane. And today we're going to do a little baking at home.
Yay! And I can't forget to mention our special guest who's, because we can't have Renee from our animal shelter come on to introduce us to some furry friends. We have Mr. Charlie Brown here to stand in for the cuteness factor. Yeah, because he's pretty cute and he's getting rather bushy, I gotta say. But he's a lot of fun. So Miss Mary Jane, have you had a good week?
Well, it's always been interesting. And of course, when the weather's nice, we spend a lot of time outside. We still haven't finished with the rock edgings. I know it took Keppel Croft 40 years to do theirs, and we're trying to do it in one season.
Yeah, you've got lots of time. You've got a lot of time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. That's a big theme during these COVID-19 days is not too much pressure on yourself.
Well, only work as long as the body holds out. And when the body says, I'm done, and that's it.
That is so important. I've been gardening too. I actually have a plot out at the Strathaven Baptist Church out, it's kind of like Bogner Way. I have some friends who've offered some space in the garden there. So I have got potatoes and carrots and beets and beans and lettuce and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that and watching it grow. Oh, well, Charlie's getting really comfortable here. Yeah, it's going to be a fun summer. I think a lot of people are choosing to do some gardening this year and starting from seeds quite a bit.
Yeah, well, what I have my pots out on my deck, and I decided to do pot gardening this year because the soil in our in Keppel is not very good. We haven't got the raised beds, so I'm starting off with pots. So I have a number of pots on my deck with cherry tomatoes and pole beans and a lot of herbs and peppers and lettuce. So what I do with the pots is I move them around to capture the sun. And I don't want them in the really heavy rain so the pots don't get soaked. So every day I'm moving pots.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Oh, listen, I've already been cutting basil and parsley to add to my recipes. So and chives, and that's great.
Well, and me being kind of a fly by the seat of her pants girl, mine aren't quite ready to harvest, that's for sure. I have a feeling I'll be lucky if I'm getting anything in October, but hopefully it's going to be successful. It certainly gives a lot of satisfaction and, to watch things grow and to nurture things like that. It's pretty cool. I wanted to, Mary Jane's going to kill me for this, but I wanted to just show everybody that our Mary Jane is a bit of a star. Okay, her and her husband, Brian, are on the cover of, West of the Bay magazine. And I don't know if you can see it on there, but I have an autographed version. So this is going to be up for grabs later on. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those money makers for me later. Something signed by the artist and the star of the magazine. I can't wait.
But the message I wrote on the magazine is that you, Rhonda, are always an inspiration to me.
Well, on that note, we shall go into the other inspiration of this week, which I have a feeling is going to be my downfall for the next week once again, because Mary Jane's going to wow us with a fantastic recipe for something that is almost as near and dear to my heart as butter tarts. I don't know if I can even say that really in honesty, but close second, I would say.
Okay.
So what are we doing this week?
Well, we are going to make Kath Thompson's wonderful brownies. But once again, I'm in my comfort zone. And part of the reason why this is my comfort zone is because I often refer to the cookbook my mother gave me 50 years ago, Better Homes and Gardens. The mixing bowls that I have were given to me by my mother-in-law, and she was the best mother-in-law ever. And a lot of my cooking tools have been gifts from my family members, my sons, my husbands, my daughter-in-law, and my grandchildren. So, and even the apron that I'm wearing today, I'm not sure how much you can see of it, was made by my friend Kathy Lajoie. So when I talk about my kitchen being my comfort zone, it's because it brings such great memories when I use all these tools. And so the other great memory that I have for today is Kath Thompson's wonderful brownies. Now, Kath Thompson was a nursery school teacher at the Family Y in the 80s and 90s. Wonderful woman, worked so well with children. And she shared with me her brownie recipe, and I've been using it since the 80s, and it's the only one I ever use because it's quick, simple, and easy, which is my trademark. So what I'm going to do is just get started. It's a simple recipe. It requires 2 cups of flour. Now, as you notice, 1.5 cups of flour. One of the things.
Good save.
I'm not much of a sifter. I don't sift. It goes in the bowl.
And Mary Jane, I've sifted on occasion, but not all the time either. And what does it really matter? Like what is the purpose of it?
Well, sometimes it is absolutely essential to sift, particularly with specialty cakes and things like that, because it just gives more air to the flour and to the ingredients and makes the product lighter. Okay, so I like my brownies dense.
Yeah.
Goopy,
Full of chocolate.
And full of chocolate. So it's 1.5 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar. This recipe does call for salt, but I choose not to put salt in it because I want to cut down on my salt content. And I'm hoping my doctor hears this, that I'm cutting down on my salt content.
Can I ask you a question? And this is kind of off topic, but I've been working with sea salt rather than the regular iodized salt. And I'm finding everything I'm making is way too salty. I've learned, I'm starting to cut back, but is that an actual thing that the sea salt is saltier? I'm confused. I haven't experienced that before. And it's not like I'm new with sea salt.
I'm very new with sea salt. I don't use it, so I don't really know very much about it, and I don't cook with it. But I do know that Doug, who is the experimental cook and just tries everything, he uses it a lot.
Your sons?
I will have to get back to you on that because I don't know. Now, I just mentioned that I didn't sift often. So here I am sifting the cocoa into the recipe. Now, I'm not sure why I started that, but I think it had to do with the fact that sometimes the cocoa is lumpy. And so I started sifting with that. Okay. So just give that a bit of a stir. Oh, it's just the cocoa smells so good.
Oh, I love that smell.
So 1.5 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, 1/2 cup of cocoa, and 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And I often make a well in the center when I put my liquid ingredients in. So I think I'm just going to finish off good job I have an extra bottle. I was at the grocery store and they had absolutely no baking powder left on the shelf. So I had to make sure that I had a recipe that didn't require baking powder because I'm so low on it.
Listen, just so you know, I will drop off because I actually have 2 containers.
Oh,
I'll drop you off a container.
oh, I better save you some brownies then. Oh, what a
Oh my God. Sorry.
you just
Score.
again. Okay. So now it's 1 cup of oil. And you notice that my tools, once again, is 1 cup, 1/2 cup, and a teaspoon. So I don't have that much to wash up at the end. Now this is a vegetable oil, and it's 1 cup of oil. There's no milk in this recipe. So anyone who is lactose intolerant, there's no milk. Now 3 eggs. And as I mentioned before, I don't put the eggs directly into the bowl until I know that I've got good eggs.
You're a good egg.
Now, there was a question that came up the other day that said, who would you most like to be quarantined with during this pandemic? And I asked my husband, and he just looked at me, and I said, it's probably better not to answer. So
I can think of a few possibilities, I gotta say. Yeah.
So I'll leave a couple of brownies when he gets back. He's out today. So there's your 3 eggs. And then a 1/2 cup of cold water. And I put a little ice cube in this water just to keep it really cold.
What does it matter if it's cold? Just curious.
Well, I don't know. I'm just following Kath Thompson's. A friend several years ago asked to share this recipe, and I shared it with her, and she took it to the fall fair and won first prize. So
I can't wait to try them.
So I did tell Kath at the time that this happened. So anyway, so the batter is really rich. I'll just maybe, can you see how dark and rich that?
Oh my goodness.
And now
you make it very difficult to stay the course, Mary Jane.
And then just to beat it just lightly, just to mix it all around, because you want it to be glossy and thick, but not beating always makes it lighter. So just to beat it lightly, just until it's smooth, not too long. And then if there's not enough chocolate.
There's never enough chocolate, so go hog wild.
A cup of chips.
Yahoo!
Oh, yeah. Well, they did land on the counter, but I scrub down my counters before I bake anyway. So we know that they're always really, really clean.
Well, and I'll say for pairings this week, the information that I came up with was that something dark and rich and maybe spicy would be good with brownies. Yeah, so I mean, dark, rich, and spicy. Who doesn't like that? So I've got a port here that's actually I had some friends give me this. Actually, they started out as clients and then they became friends, and really good friends, I gotta say. They gave me a chocolate raspberry port. So I think that would be spectacular with the brownies, possibly later this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
But to be honest, most of the time I have a cup of tea with my brownies, and I picked chai. So I know lots of people know that flavor. It's got a bit of a bite to it, not a bite, but it is a bit of a spicy tea. And you can put honey or whatever you want in there, and some whipped cream, and a little can go in the brownie, a little can go in the chai tea. And I think that would be a very excellent pairing as well.
Oh, it sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So tell me again the port. I'm sorry.
It's chocolate raspberry, and I believe it's like a red wine port. This is actually a homemade bottle, but you could get it at your liquor store as well, or probably up at Foodland, and at Zares too. I think they have port. I could be wrong, but I would think they've got something. I mean, and then you've always got the nice ice wines, but you don't want a white. You want something rich and creamy and chocolatey to go with those fabulous brownies. Good Lord, Mary Jane, that looks good.
I'm scooping this into a greased 9 by 13 pan. And you can also put it on a cookie sheet if you sort of want more brownies. You can actually just put it on a cookie sheet.
More? What do you mean on more brownies?
Well, these ones are, well, I cut these ones smaller because they're higher. When you put them on a cookie sheet, it flattens them out because a cookie sheet is so much bigger. And then sometimes, if I feel like it being fancy, I know one of my daughter-in-laws likes them iced with a chocolate icing.
I like your daughter-in-law.
Sometimes I'll just put, after they're cooled, I'll just put sift icing sugar over them, so it has like a little snowflake feel to it. So I'm just going to leave these here because the oven is still warming up. I'm just going to put them. But these are the ones. This is what they look like when they're done. I cut them into little squares because then you feel you can have 2 without feeling guilty. 2, 3. Guilty. But they're the right size for my grandchildren to have one. At the same time without being, I am just covered in chocolate, without, with their, their parents are feeling like that's okay, So generally, and you need to cut them after you take them out. You bake them at 350 for 20 minutes, depending on the size of your pan. If you're putting them on a cookie sheet, maybe 18 minutes is enough. I find that with the 9 by 13, sometimes it's 20 minutes or 22 minutes. It depends on how quickly it cooks. So the smaller the pan, the more time they need to cook through. But you want moist and gooey and soft.
Do they, the top of them, is it that you don't want them to look dry and cracked on the top? That means you've overcooked them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you put a toothpick in to check?
I do.
Okay.
On everything that I bake, cakes and brownies and things like that. So absolutely, I use the toothpick to test it out.
So with brownies, should they have something left on the toothpick before because you don't want them to be dry?
No, but I usually tell by the top crust. If it starts to crackle, then they're in too long. So when at that 20-minute mark, that's when I actually start watching them to make sure that they're not going to overcook. And sometimes they do, but we eat them anyway.
Yeah. It won't hurt.
A little ice cream or a little Bailey's. Hey,
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. That's the perfect way to rectify a dry brownie is a little bit of Bailey's on the top there, with ice cream. Oh my goodness.
absolutely.
And I guess the Big Bay ice cream place, the ice cream, oh my goodness, yeah, I know. If you haven't been up to the Big Bay General Store to get ice cream, it's homemade and it is insanely delicious. And I think they're down, aren't they? Don't they have a mobile unit this year? They're set up somewhere.
Yes, I think it's at the Great Canadian Factory Outlet up on 10th Street West, I believe. I saw it.
Right.
Thinking that I might have to make a little trip up there one day. How much time do we have, Rhonda? Because I want to
7 minutes.
We have 7 minutes. I wanted to mention, I mean, baking is something that is in my family, and we've been doing it for a really long time. But I mentioned to you a cookbook that we had made as a family. And this was made, actually, it was 20 years ago, because we did it in December of 1999 as Christmas gifts for 2000, and now it's 2020. So we gathered the family together, and we asked each family and each member of the family, all the way down to 5-year-olds, to submit a recipe. And we put them in a little photo album, and we made 22 of them. And we started with, it's called A Family of Bakers. Brian did all the artwork. It's called A Family of Bakers. And we started with pictures of my great grandma, and her name was Lucy Baker. So Family of Bakers, Lucy Baker. And then my grandmother, my Granny Hardman, who I learned to really bake with, and her recipes. And then my mom and dad and their recipes. And my father's mother, she always made Yorkshire pudding every Sunday. And so her famous recipe, she didn't cook much, but she made Yorkshire pudding. And then we just went through all the family members, and they submitted their recipes. And we put in additional family photos that went along with it. So
now, wouldn't that be an awesome project? Because they say, like, everybody is home doing more cooking and baking than ever in known our history, at least, or at least mine as an adult. Great project for this year for people to do their COVID-19 recipe books with their families.
Absolutely. One of the things is we tend to look online, so we don't have something to pass down. So all my sons have one of these books. All their cousins have one of these books. And so this is a picture of my son Chris when he was 2, when we started baking together, when they were 2. And just all the different, now, in the year 2000, the National Archives of Ottawa was collecting information on special projects that families were doing. And they heard about this cookbook, and they wrote to me and asked me if they could have this down in Ottawa for 6 months to put in their exhibit. And so my oldest son, Chris, this is a picture of him, a picture of him in the archives beside the exhibit. So they actually made a trip to the National Archives. We were also invited to a reception and we were honored guests at the opening of the National Archives when they had their Millennium exhibit. So we were invited guests to Ottawa for this momentous event in our family cookbook, the family of bakers. So that was, an amazing thing. So we have all our family recipes, and some of, like, my parents have passed on, my uncle has passed on. There's been some changes in our family membership, some joining, some leaving, how that happens with families. But the thing is that they all contributed to this book, and it's a great family memento, as well as great family memories. And Brian did all the artwork that's in this book, some of the cartoon artwork that one of the famous stories is my nephew Dan. He always brought potatoes to all the family dinners, but he was always late. So Brian drew all these little potatoes running across the page underneath his recipe. So it's a great addition if you're looking for something to do during the extra time you have on your hands.
And you know what? I mean, doing it as a living group is kind of a great idea, because sometimes when a family member or somebody who's not writing an actual cookbook and has an editor that's going to go through it for them, you forget to add a line, you forget to add a step that, really does put you in a pickle in the middle of the recipe. So this is a great way to be able to talk about that when people are still around, and you can get the hang of the recipe, which is kind of nice, because everybody's got those recipes in their family that they want to keep, and it gives them those memories of growing up and happy times.
Well, the secret behind this is my uncle always made a blue cheese dip at Christmas time, never any other time of the year. And we all wanted the recipe. He wouldn't give it to us. And so my sister and my cousin and I, with, a bottle of wine or two, decided that if we did a recipe book, he'd have to cough up the ingredients for this. So that's what started the whole thing. Oh. And then we decided that we would give every member a copy of the book for Christmas. And so we made 22 original copies, and each family got to add their own personal photographs of their children.
That is so awesome. So maybe next week you could give us that recipe, because I love blue cheese dip, because we are actually out of time. This show has gone very quickly, and I have to go out to Mary Jane's house to drop off some baking powder and pick up some brownies. So yahoo! Oh, I'm going to need your address, Mary Jane.
I will give it to you.
And we will be back next week with more Grey County life at home. And we have no idea what's coming, but things are always changing, and that can be a good thing. So we'll see you next week, and have a great week, everybody, and stay safe.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
For 25 years, you've been helping to make our roads safer by doing the right thing. You've been the designated driver